Have you ever stopped to think about why your life sometimes feels like a battlefield where the fiercest enemy is not someone out there, but the person staring back at you in the mirror? Why is it that, no matter how much you try to improve yourself, something inside keeps pulling you back, sabotaging your efforts? There's a part of each of us that remains hidden, waiting in the shadows, influencing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in ways we barely understand. Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychologist, called this part of us the shadow. He believed that we all carry within us a darker side, the parts of our psyche that we suppress or deny because they are too painful, too shameful, or too uncomfortable to confront. But what if I told you that this shadow isn't your enemy? What if it holds the key to overcoming the very struggles that seem to define your life? This is the journey of the inner hero, the journey to face your shadow, to confront your inner demons, and to transcend them. When we think about heroes, we often picture someone defeating a villain, saving the world, or achieving something extraordinary. But what if the greatest hero's journey isn't about saving the world, but saving yourself? Jung believed that the process of individuation, becoming your true and whole self, requires a confrontation with the shadow. In every myth, every legend, and every story that moves us, there's a common theme. The hero must face the monster, the dragon, or the darkness. What makes these stories so timeless is that they mirror the psychological battles we all face. The dragon is not just an external foe, it's a symbol of our fears, our insecurities, and the parts of ourselves we reject. To slay the dragon, the hero must first confront it. And to confront it, the hero must enter the cave, the dark, unknown space where all the things we fear most reside.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
But how do we even begin this journey? How do we step into the cave when every fiber of our being is telling us to run away? The first step is recognizing that the shadow exists. It's there in the moments when we lash out at someone we love, only to regret it later. It's there in the habits that keep us stuck, the self-doubt that whispers we're not good enough, and the envy we feel when someone else achieves what we want. These moments are not random or meaningless. They are clues, breadcrumbs left by our unconscious mind, pointing us toward the parts of ourselves that need healing. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that. How much of your life is being controlled by forces you don't even see? How many of your choices, reactions, and emotions are shaped by wounds or beliefs you've never fully examined? To confront the shadow is to shine a light on these unconscious forces. It requires brutal honesty and a willingness to see yourself as you truly are, not as you wish to be. This can be terrifying because it means facing not only your flaws, but also your deepest fears. For example, you might discover that your constant need for approval stems from a childhood wound where you felt invisible or unloved. Or you might realize that the anger you direct at others is really anger at yourself for not living up to your own expectations. These revelations are not easy to accept, but they are necessary. You cannot defeat a monster you refuse to see. But here's the paradox: the shadow is not just the source of our struggles, it's also the source of our power. Jung believed that the shadow contains not only our suppressed flaws, but also our hidden strengths. Think about the parts of yourself you've been told to hide. Maybe you were taught that being assertive is rude, so you suppress your ability to stand up for yourself. Maybe you were told that vulnerability is weakness, so you bury your emotions and avoid intimacy. Over time, these buried parts of yourself don't just disappear, they become part of your shadow, and as long as they remain in the shadow, they control you from the dark. But when you bring them into the light, you can reclaim them. Assertiveness becomes confidence, vulnerability becomes connection. The very things you've been taught to fear about yourself are often the things that can set you free. This is the essence of the inner hero's journey: to face the shadow, to confront the parts of yourself you've been running from, and to integrate them into your conscious self. Integration doesn't mean getting rid of the shadow, it means accepting it as part of who you are. It means understanding that your flaws and imperfections are not weaknesses but opportunities for growth. It means realizing that the parts of yourself you hate the most are often the parts that hold the greatest potential for transformation. Think about it. What would your life look like if you stopped running from your fears, your insecurities, and your pain? What if, instead of avoiding them, you faced them head-on? What if you could turn your greatest struggles into your greatest strengths? This process is not easy. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But the rewards are profound. When you confront your shadow, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You start to understand why you think, feel, and act the way you do. You gain the power to break free from the patterns that have been holding you back. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to cultivate a sense of inner peace, not because you've eliminated your demons, but because you've learned to live with them. This is what it means to be whole. Wholeness is not perfection. It's not about being free of flaws or struggles. It's about embracing all parts of yourself, even the messy, imperfect ones. One of the most powerful tools for confronting the shadow is self-reflection. Take a moment to think about the areas of your life where you feel stuck. What patterns keep repeating? What emotions feel overwhelming or out of control? These are clues to where your shadow might be hiding. For example, if you find yourself constantly seeking validation from others, it might be because your shadow contains a deep fear of being unworthy. If you struggle with anger, your shadow might be holding unexpressed pain or frustration. The key is to approach these parts of yourself with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Your shadow is not your enemy, it's a guide showing you the parts of yourself that need attention and care. But self-reflection is only the beginning. To truly integrate your shadow, you need to take action. This might mean having difficult conversations, setting boundaries, or facing situations you've been avoiding. It might mean seeking therapy, journaling, or practicing mindfulness to become more aware of your thoughts and emotions. Whatever form it takes, the goal is to bring the shadow into the light, to make the unconscious As you do, you'll begin to notice subtle but profound changes in your life. The conflicts that used to consume you will start to lose their intensity. The people and situations that once triggered you will feel less threatening. And most importantly, you'll begin to feel a sense of freedom. A freedom that comes from no longer being controlled by the parts of yourself you once feared. This is the hero's reward, the realization that the darkness you've been running from is not something to fear, but something to embrace. The shadow is not a monster to be defeated, but a part of yourself to be understood. And when you understand it, when you integrate it, you become whole, you become the hero of your own story. You begin to see that the greatest victory is not over an external enemy, but over the inner demons that once held you captive. The light within the darkness is a concept that often feels contradictory. How can there be light in what terrifies us, wounds us, or makes us feel ashamed? Yet this is the paradox of the shadow. The very things we fear about ourselves often hold the most transformative power. When we suppress our emotions, ignore our insecurities, or reject our flaws, we create a split within ourselves. We become divided, at war with parts of our own being. This internal conflict is exhausting, and it manifests in ways we don't always recognize. Maybe it shows up as procrastination, as if some invisible force is holding you back. Maybe it's a constant need for distraction, an endless consumption of entertainment, work, or relationships to avoid the silence of your own mind. Or maybe it's a quiet but persistent feeling that no matter what you achieve, it's never enough. These are all signs that your shadow is calling for your attention, not to punish you, but to help you heal. The shadow is not the enemy, it is the wounded part of you that wants to be understood. When you begin to face your shadow, something remarkable happens. The energy you once spent suppressing it becomes available for other things. Think about how much mental and emotional energy goes into hiding parts of yourself. The lies you tell, even to yourself, take a toll. The masks you wear to fit in or avoid judgment weigh you down. When you stop fighting against your shadow, you free up that energy for creativity, for joy, for connection. You start to see that the parts of yourself you thought were weaknesses can become strength. Take anger, for example. Most of us are taught to see anger as destructive, something to avoid or control. But anger, when understood and integrated, can be a powerful force for change. It can help you set boundaries, stand up for yourself, and fight for what you believe in. The same is true for sadness. Instead of seeing it as a sign of weakness, you can learn to see it as a signal that something in your life needs attention or care. Even fear, often seen as the ultimate enemy, has its place. Fear can protect you, guide you, and help you grow when you learn to face it rather than run from it. But how do we take these abstract ideas and apply them to real life? One way is through self-awareness. Start paying attention to the moments when you feel triggered or upset. Instead of reacting automatically, take a step back and ask yourself, what's really going on? For example, imagine someone criticizes you at work and you feel a surge of anger or defensiveness. Your instinct might be to argue or shut down, but what if you paused and looked deeper? What if that anger is not just about the criticism, but about a deeper fear of being seen as incompetent or unworthy? When you dig beneath the surface, you start to see the patterns that drive your reactions. These patterns often originate in past experiences, moments when you felt hurt, rejected, or not good enough. The shadow holds on to these moments, not out of malice, but as a way of protecting you. By bringing these patterns into the light, you can begin to respond differently. You can choose actions that align with your values rather than being controlled by your fears. Another practical way to work with your shadow is through journaling. Writing down your thoughts and emotions can be incredibly revealing. It creates a space where you can be honest with yourself without fear of judgment. Start by writing about a recent situation that upset you. What happened? How did you feel? What thoughts ran through your mind? Then ask yourself where those feelings and thoughts might have come from. Were they rooted in the present moment, or did they tap into something deeper, an old wound or belief? Journaling helps you connect the dots to see the threads that run through your life. And once you see those threads, you can begin to untangle them. This process is not always comfortable. It can bring up emotions you've been avoiding for years. But it's also liberating. It gives you the clarity and insight you need to change the way you live. Shadow work is not just about looking inward. It's also about how you relate to others. Our relationships are often mirrors that reflect our shadow back to us. The traits we dislike in others are often the traits we've rejected in ourselves. For example, if you find yourself irritated by someone who is overly confident, it might be because you've suppressed your own desire to be seen and heard. Or if you judge someone for being too emotional, it might be because you've been taught to hide your own feelings. This doesn't mean you have to like everyone or tolerate unhealthy behavior, but it does mean that the people who trigger you can teach you something about yourself. Instead of focusing on what's wrong with them, ask what their behavior is bringing up in you. What part of yourself are you seeing in them? This shift in perspective can transform your relationships. It helps you approach others with more compassion and less judgment, and as you do, you start to create deeper, more authentic connections. Compassion is a key part of shadow work, not just for others, but for yourself. When you face your shadow, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-criticism. You might think, "Why am I like this? Why can't I just be better?" But shadow work is not about fixing yourself or becoming perfect. It's about accepting yourself as you are, flaws are all. This doesn't mean you stop striving to grow or improve. It means you stop seeing your imperfections as evidence of your unworthiness. You start to see them as part of what makes you human. Think about the people you admire most. Are they flawless, or are they people who've faced challenges, made mistakes, and grown from them? True strength doesn't come from never falling, it comes from getting back up, from learning and growing through the struggles. The same is true for you. Your shadow is not a flaw, it's a part of your story, and when you embrace it, you become stronger, wiser, and more whole. As you integrate your shadow, you begin to notice a shift in how you experience life. The things that used to trigger you lose their power. The fears that once held you back start to feel smaller, and the inner critic that used to dominate your thoughts grows quieter. This doesn't mean your shadow disappears. It will always be there, but it will no longer control you. Instead, it becomes a source of wisdom and strength. You start to see that the light and the darkness are not separate. They are two sides of the same coin. Without the darkness, there can be no light. Without struggle, there can be no growth. This is the paradox of the inner hero's journey. To overcome your inner demons, you must first befriend them. You must face them with courage, listen to what they have to say, and integrate their lessons into your life. This is how you become whole. This is how you step into your power. When you think about your life as a story, what kind of hero do you want to be? Do you want to be someone who runs from challenges, who lets fear and doubt dictate their path? Or do you want to be someone who faces their struggles head-on, who learns and grows from every experience, and who inspires others by living authentically? The choice is yours. The journey of the inner hero is not an easy one, but it is the most rewarding. It is the path to true freedom, not because you escape your demons, but because you learn to live with them. You learn that the darkness within you is not something to fear, it is something to embrace, and as you do, you discover the light within. You discover the strength, the wisdom, and the love that have been there all along.